Undeniably, the United States stands as the world's leading military power, boasts the largest GDP, and is one of the most coveted destinations for business and personal aspirations. It's the place where almost everyone dreams of living and thriving. But did this dominance and influence arise purely by chance? Was the incredible development of the world's greatest industrial powerhouse merely a stroke of luck? Or are there concrete reasons and well-defined strategies behind this success? Many people don't realize it, but Americans are situated in a privileged and strategic location on the globe, occupying much of the temperate zone of the Northern Hemisphere. Historically, this region has been considered the most favorable for human and economic development. And what does that mean? It means this geographic positioning provides a balanced climate, with moderate summers and winters that are not excessively harsh, ideal conditions for agriculture and societal development. This location also enabled the American nation to make the most of its abundant natural resources, from fertile soils to plentiful freshwater supplies. Additionally, the country benefits from an expansive distribution of land that includes some of the most habitable and productive areas on the planet. According to Nicholas Spickman, one of the greatest geopolitical theorists, history happens in the temperate latitudes, referring to the fact that major civilizations and global powers have emerged in regions with mild climates and well-defined seasons. To understand the importance of this, let's compare the Southern Hemisphere, particularly South America, which is marked by significant natural barriers that hinder human development. The vast and dense Amazon rainforest, the largest tropical forest in the world, poses extreme logistical challenges, creating vast areas that are difficult to access and complicating infrastructure development. Furthermore, the Andes Mountains, with their high altitudes and rugged terrain, act as a natural barrier, fragmenting territories and limiting connectivity between regions. To make matters worse, much of the Southern Hemisphere consists of tropical or arid zones, which are less suitable for large-scale agriculture and more vulnerable to extreme climates. These combined factors create monumental challenges for economic and territorial integration, hindering the development of efficient production chains and robust, interconnected markets. In contrast, the United States enjoys vast internal connectivity and significant geographic advantages. As mentioned earlier, it has the largest stretch of contiguous arable land in the world, primarily located in the Midwest. This vast expanse of fertile land has been a cornerstone of the country's economic growth, enabling unprecedented agricultural productivity. States like Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, and South Dakota are part of this region, which remains one of the most productive on the planet to this day. This fertility can be attributed to three key geographic factors. First, the region east of the Rocky Mountains receives abundant rainfall, ensuring that the soil stays naturally well irrigated. Second, the predominantly flat topography facilitates large-scale farming and the use of modern agricultural machinery. The native vegetation, consisting of prairies and open fields, also helps by eliminating the need for extensive deforestation to prepare the land for cultivation. Finally, the third factor is the Mississippi River Basin, which provides a natural and cost-effective transportation route for distributing agricultural production. However, America's wealth is not limited to its vast arable land. The United States possesses a unique natural infrastructure that integrates its resources with the rest of the country and the world, something other major powers, like Russia and Brazil, cannot fully replicate due to logistical and geographical challenges. Russia, for instance, struggles with infrastructure issues in remote regions, while Brazil faces accessibility challenges in its dense forest areas. In contrast, American geography not only facilitates the use of its fertile lands but also ensures integrated logistics, particularly because of the proximity of these lands to major rivers and ports. This combination of factors allowed the United States to establish itself as an agricultural powerhouse early in its history, positioning the country among the world's largest food exporters. Moreover, this natural abundance attracted waves of immigrants who played a crucial role in exploring and developing the vast American territory. Still, America's rise cannot be attributed solely to the fertility of its land. Another essential factor in building the empire that the U.S. is today lies in its navigable waterways. The Mississippi River Basin, as previously mentioned, is one of the country's greatest natural advantages, playing a vital role in economic integration. Located at the heart of American territory, this vast network of waterways, spanning over 3,000 navigable kilometers, directly connects the agricultural Midwest to the Gulf of Mexico, facilitating the transport of goods and boosting the national economy from the earliest days of territorial expansion. This unique navigability allows for the transport of large volumes of cargo at a significantly lower cost compared to other means, such as highways or railways. The Mississippi and its tributaries have become a vital natural infrastructure for the country's economic development. The ability to navigate the entire basin is a result of the region's unique geographic features. The tributaries of the Mississippi originate at relatively low altitudes, reducing the need for major interventions to make them accessible for river transport. Additionally, no productive area in the region is more than 200 kilometers from a navigable river, making the region's logistics highly efficient. Historically, control of the Mississippi Basin was one of the United States' primary geopolitical objectives. Securing the Mississippi allowed the young nation to consolidate its territory and economically integrate its various regions. The Louisiana Purchase, which included most of the basin, was a decisive step in this process, ensuring that Americans had access to one of the world's largest river systems. Unlike Europe, where rivers often flow in divergent directions and segment territories, in the United States, the interconnected rivers fostered a unified political and economic structure. The Mississippi Basin also played a strategic role in the territorial expansion of the United States. The ability to transport goods and people across this vast hydrographic network encouraged the colonization of the country's interior and enabled the rapid exploration and integration of American territory. Beyond navigable rivers, another significant feature of the U.S. is its access to two oceans, the Atlantic to the east and the Pacific to the west. This transoceanic positioning is rare and places the country in a unique global position. Most continental nations, such as Brazil, Russia, or China, have access to only one ocean or face significant geographical barriers to reach the second. In the United States, however, the east and west coasts are well connected. By the early 20th century, the North Atlantic was the most important maritime route in the world, connecting the leading economies of the time, such as Western Europe and North America. However, starting in 1990, the Pacific took over this position, driven by the rise of Asian economies like China, Japan, and South Korea. This shift directly benefited the United States, strategically positioned to access both of the world's most important trade routes. Access to both oceans also provides significant economic and military advantages. Economically, it allows the United States to actively participate in trade on both coasts, diversifying its partnerships and expanding its global influence. Militarily, control over both coasts strengthens the country's defensive and offensive capabilities, facilitating troop movements and the establishment of strategic naval bases worldwide. Moreover, the connectivity between the coasts was solidified by the construction of the Transcontinental Railroad, completed in 1869. This project enabled the efficient integration of American territory, connecting markets and populations from east to west. Another defining feature of American geopolitics is the security afforded by its geography. The United States is essentially a continental island, protected by two vast oceans, the Atlantic to the east and the Pacific to the west. This natural separation makes invading American territory exceedingly difficult for external powers, as any attempt would require intermediate bases and complex naval and amphibious operations. To the north, the United States shares a border with a friendly nation, Canada, an expansive country with a low population density and harsh climatic conditions over much of its territory. These factors limit Canada's ability to sustain large populations or military forces near the American border. To the south, Mexico, while more populous and geographically accessible, lacks the economic and military resources to pose a significant threat. This creates a scenario where the United States is effectively isolated from direct rivals on its continent. Central and South America also do not represent strategic threats to American territory. The fragmented geography of Latin America, with barriers like the Andes Mountains, the Amazon rainforest, and the absence of interconnected large river basins, prevents the formation of a unified regional power capable of challenging the United States. Additionally, the Central American Isthmus acts as a natural point of separation between North and South America, further reinforcing the U.S.'s strategic isolation. This geographical isolation has historically been one of the key factors enabling the United States to grow and develop without significant external interference. During the American Civil War, for instance, there were no major interventions from other powers, a rare occurrence in world history. By contrast, Europe has often seen its internal conflicts attract interventions from neighboring nations, leading to prolonged and destructive wars. Even during global wars, such as World War I and World War II, the geographic location of the United States ensured that its mainland remained largely untouched. The most significant attack suffered by the U.S. was Pearl Harbor in Hawaii, which, while tragic, did not pose a substantial threat to the continental U.S. As we have seen so far, the rise of the United States as a global superpower was not a matter of chance, but rather the result of a series of carefully achieved geopolitical imperatives throughout its history. These imperatives can be summarized into at least 5 fundamental pillars: securing complete control of the Mississippi River Basin, eliminating any land-based threats to this strategic region, controlling the maritime routes accessing its territory through 2 oceans, ensuring absolute dominance of the oceans, and preventing the emergence of a rival power in its vicinity. The construction of the United States as we know it today is the result of a continuous process of territorial expansion that unfolded over several stages during the 18th and 19th centuries. From the original 13 colonies to the conquest of the West Coast, every move was essential to consolidating American territory and securing its geopolitical interests. Going back in history, the expansion began with the independence of the 13 colonies in 1776, which gave the United States its initial territory along the East Coast. However, these colonies were constrained by the Appalachian Mountains and relied on maritime trade with Europe, leaving the territory vulnerable. The Treaty of Paris in 1783 expanded American borders to the Mississippi River, granting the young nation access to new lands and resources. The Louisiana Purchase in 1803 was one of the most significant milestones in this process. For $15 million, the United States doubled its territory, acquiring much of the Midwest and the Mississippi River Valley. This purchase not only secured fertile lands but also gave the United States access to key waterways, solidifying the geopolitical imperative of controlling the Mississippi Basin. The expansion continued with the annexation of Texas in 1845, which had gained independence from Mexico. This incorporation led to a conflict with Mexico, culminating in the American victory and the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo in 1848. The treaty controversially granted the United States control of California and vast territories now forming Utah, Nevada, Arizona, Colorado, and New Mexico. This expansion to the Pacific transformed the United States into a transcontinental country with access to 2 oceans, as previously discussed. Finally, the continental territory was completed in 1853 with the Gadsden Purchase, which added parts of Arizona and New Mexico to U.S. territory. This piece of land was crucial for building a southern railroad route connecting the country's interior to the West Coast. With this, the United States achieved the territorial cohesion necessary to establish itself as an economic and military power, marking the end of its continental expansion phase. After consolidating its continental territory, the United States entered a new geopolitical phase, transitioning from land dominance to maritime and global projection. This shift was driven by the need to protect its coasts and maritime routes while expanding its influence beyond the continent. This phase, known as continental maritime, marked the rise of the United States as a naval power, with actions extending across the Caribbean, the Pacific, and even Southeast Asia. The Spanish-American War of 1898 was a turning point in this process. Sparked largely by the Cuban question, the conflict ended with a U.S. victory and the acquisition of key territories such as Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines. These territories not only expanded America's presence in the Pacific but also strengthened its control over the Caribbean. The construction of the Panama Canal, completed in 1914, was another essential achievement. The canal connected the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, enabling the quick and efficient movement of ships between the two American coasts. This not only facilitated global trade but also enhanced the United States' military capabilities, allowing for more strategic naval deployments. The canal's construction reinforced the idea that controlling maritime routes was crucial to American security and global power. The theoretical foundation for this transition was provided by Alfred Mahan, one of the most influential naval strategists in history. In his writings, Mahan argued that naval power was key to global projection, emphasizing the importance of strategic naval bases, a strong navy, and control over major maritime routes. Ultimately, this transition solidified the United States as a global power, enabling the country to influence events across all continents. Control over the Caribbean and the Pacific was essential to preventing rival powers from accessing the Western Hemisphere, while dominance of global maritime routes provided a robust economic and military foundation. This ability to project power beyond its borders transformed the United States into the leading global power of the 20th century and the cornerstone of the contemporary international system. If you enjoyed this content and want to dive even deeper into this fascinating topic, stay tuned. Soon, we'll release the second part of this documentary, delving further into the paths that led the U.S. to become the superpower it is today. So don't waste time. Subscribe to the channel now and turn on notifications to follow the next chapters of this story closely.